days, speed for strength. Stillness keeps balance, nothing wasted, nothing rushed. The room leans forward, stillness doesn't. Energy conserved, focus untouched. Still wins, always has, still wins. When noise burns out, still wins. Without raising a voice. Chaos exhausts itself early, calm stays operational. Every breath measured, every step placed, no reaction offered, no ground lost. Speed fades, control remains, still wins against pressure, still wins against time, still wins because it never moved wrong. Those who endure don't hurry conclusions, they let outcomes arrive. Still wins and walks away intact. High noise shatters easy, low tones travel far. What shakes foundations doesn't announce itself. Eyes don't catch it, structures feel it. Volume distracts, depth controls. Power moves low, below attention. Power moves low, below argument. Power moves low and stays there. The deepest pressure never rushes impact. Time becomes an ally when direction is fixed. No display needed, no warning signs. Surface breaks, depth endures. Power moves low, unseen, untouched. Power moves low, unchallenged, steady. Power moves low, that's why it lasts. Those listening done. Power moves low, always did. Some weight was placed on you before you were old enough to refuse it. The work is learning which of it was ever yours. Long before the choosing, there was already a shape assigned, a silhouette of expectation carved before the mind was old enough to question what the carving was about, or whose hands did the shaping and what they were shaping out. Fathers leave their fractures in the architecture of the sun, not in malice, in the only language they had when they were young. And the son inherits what the father couldn't hold alone, calls it character for years before he finds it in the bone. Not his anger, not his silence, but carry like it always was. Bone scripture, written in before the ink was chosen. Doctrine of the bloodline, old and mostly unspoken. Every reflex has a history that predates the man. You don't know what you're carrying until you set it down and understand. Oh, scripture, the inheritance you didn't sign. Spent a decade performing the geometry of strength that a man who feared his softness passed to me at length, without a word of transfer, just the daily exhibition of a stoicism that was actually a slow attrition of the parts of him that needed what he couldn't let himself receive. And I learned the same performance, and I learned the same reprieve of deflecting into silence what the moment needed said, until I found the pattern living in me like the dead. Living in the living, not as ghost but as a groove, a worn track in the record that the needle always moves into, without deciding. Sit with what was given before you call it yours. Some of it is armor, some of it is swords, dressed as armor, wearing armor shape, but cutting from the inside. The work is not rejection, the work is the separation of the wound from the man. Now I hold the inheritance with deliberate open hands. What was useful I have kept, and what was damaged I have scanned for the origin, returned it to the man it first belonged. Not in bitterness, in clarity, the ledger going long back to men who also carried what was placed on them too young, who never had the language and who never had the lung capacity to breathe it out into the honest air. I'm ending certain chapters that were written in despair by men I loved who didn't know they were the authors of my weight. Breaking what was broken in you is the deepest form of love for those who came before. Set it down, walk forward clean. Bone scripture, written in before the ink was chosen. Doctrine of the bloodline, old and mostly unspoken. Every reflex has a history that predates the man. You don't know what you're carrying until you sat it down and understand. sign on scripture. Not every inheritance is worth keeping. Not every burden was ever yours. Put it down. Walk out of it. There is a moment that arrives without announcement or fanfare, that splits the timeline of a life into the then and the there. Before it one man, after it someone before wouldn't know. A door inside the ordinary that you didn't see below the surface of a Tuesday or a winter afternoon. A sentence or a silence or a loss arriving soon into the life you thought was settled in its permanent design. Every meridian feels like an ending at the time. Before the knowing, after the knowing, the same man carrying different light. Meridian, the line that changed man crosses, looking back, sees the version of himself still walking on the other track. Who wants to warn him but already knows the warning isn't what he needs. Every man must cross his own meridian. No one else can plant the seed. Meridian, the before and after of a life. Meridian. Mine arrived in the architecture of unnecessary loss, the kind that strips the scaffolding and shows you what it costs to build your life around a thing that was never built to hold the weight you placed upon it in the confidence of old certainties. The loss arrived and took them quietly away and left me in the unfamiliar silence of a different day, where the answers that I carried didn't fit the questions anymore. And I had to learn to walk again on a completely different floor. The caterpillar doesn't know what the dissolution means. From inside the dark of change, and it just knows it can't unsee what the process has already started in the marrow and the mind. The meridian is only visible from the other side. Now I recognize the meridians approaching in the lives of the men around me, in the way the certainty arrives at the edge of its own argument and starts to thin and pale. I've been past that border. I know exactly where the trail leads into the unfamiliar ground, where the old maps go dark, where a man must navigate entirely by interior spark. Not the compass of the crowd and not the comfort of the known. The meridian is where a man discovers he was never not alone. Cross it clear, cross it forward. Meridian, the line that changed man crosses, looking back, sees the version of himself still walking on the other track. Wants to warn him but already knows the warning isn't what he needs. Every man must cross his own meridian. No one else can plant the seed. Meridian, the before and after of a life. Meridian, you can't go back to before. That man is gone. The man after is the whole point. lights flicker on wet pavement where the desperate chase grows. Voices rise like sirens, hungry and uncontrolled. But beneath the neon haze, where the shadows learn to wait, one figure moves untouched by the hunger and the hate. Titles crumble faster than the men who chase their gleam. The crown sits heaviest on heads that never asked to wear. True power needs no throne when the kingdom is already there. The crown sits heaviest on heads that never asked to wear. True power needs no throne when the kingdom is already there. Promises break like glass beneath indifferent boots. Ambition burns bright, then leaves nothing but black roots. Discipline walks steady through the smoke and through the ash, building empire silently from the remnants of this trash. Respect arrives unannounced like frost on window panes. It settles on the shoulders of the man who feels no chains. No need to raise a voice or lift a single hand. Authority flows quiet from the one who understands. The crown sits heaviest on heads that never asked to wear. True power needs no throne when the kingdom is already there. The crown sits heaviest on heads that never asked to wear. True power needs no throne when the kingdom is already there. Rooms read intention before language. Hands stay visible, breath stays slow. Nothing accidental, nothing impulsive. Discipline enters before decision. No sudden moves, that's control. No sudden moves, that's clarity. No sudden moves, that's our ground is kept. Reaction hands power weight. Patience holds it, eyes track everything without following anything. No traps sprung, no lines crossed. Awareness stays wide, motion stays precise. No sudden moves, nothing to exploit. No sudden moves, survive longest rarely hurry first. They wait until the room settles. No sudden moves, and nothing slips. Crowds leave behind empty echoes. Confetti settles into forgotten corners. What stays standing never shouted. Applause fades, structure remains. After the noise, truth stands. After the noise, weight settles. After the noise, only what's real remains. Moments burn fast, foundations cool slowly. The loud exit first, the solace stays late. No celebration needed, no explanation offered. Silence returns, order follows. After the noise, direction clarifies. After the noise, false weight disappears. After the noise, strength stays quiet. History listens after the room clears. That's when permanence speaks. After the noise, after the noise, always. The world is loud and getting louder by the hour in the day. Every frequency competing for the place inside your head, where the quiet used to live before the noise found its way in, and convinced you that the chaos was the natural discipline of being present, being human, being plugged into the feed. But the feed was engineered by men who profited from need, from the constant agitation of the man who can't sit still, who mistakes the noise for living and the static for a thrill. Turn it down, turn it further. Find the frequency that's yours alone. Low frequency, below the range the distracted ever hear, where the signal has been stripped of everything that isn't clear, where the bass note of a man's own nature moves without the static. The calmest man in any room is running on the frequency the room can't match. Low frequency, below the noise. Low frequency. I watch men drain themselves into the argument online, into the outrage in the theater of the current sign, or whatever the collective agitation chose today. Arriving empty at the evening with their energy away, spent on things that never asked for it and never will, while the work they were supposed to do was sitting somewhere still, impatient, waiting for the man who never showed, because he was busy being bothered by the permanent applause of everything that asked for his attention without cost to itself. Only to him, only what he's lost. Diogenes lived in a barrel and still found it too much. Still moved the barrel from the shadow of the man who offered too much. Not misanthropy, just frequency selection. The low note cuts through everything, the high note just reflects it. Now I move through the commotion like a current under weather, undisturbed by the surface and indifferent to whether the consensus of the moment matches what I know is true. I stop calibrating to the room can miscalibrate too. There is a frequency so low the walls don't interrupt it, so grounded in the marrow that the noise can't reconstruct it into something that it recognizes, something it can use. A man who holds his own frequency can't be tuned to someone else's blues. Hold it steady, hold it low. Low frequency, below the range the distracted ever hear, where the signal has been stripped of everything that isn't clear, where the bass note of a man's own nature moves without the static. The calmest man in any room is running on a frequency the room can't match. Low frequency, below the noise. Low frequency. Turn down the world, turn up the signal. The real one, the one beneath everything. No one in my bloodline walked this far into this kind of ground. No inherited direction and no ancestral sound to guide the step or name the landmark or confirm the route. I arrived at the frontier with nothing but the will to find out. There's a particular loneliness in being the first generation to move past the boundary of the family's known station, where the wisdom of the elders ends and the unmarked begins, and a man must write his own scripture in the discipline of winds. No guide here, no precedent, just the compass and the open ground. The cartographer's creed, you draw the road as you go. Every step into the unknown is the only thing you know. The map gets made behind you, and it's made from what you cross. The man who charts new ground accepts he cannot count the cost before he starts. The cartographer's creed, draw Draw the road as you walk it. The cartographer's creed. There are families with centuries of pattern and of path, where the son inherits not just wealth but the entire aftermath of men who built the scaffolding that holds the living now, where the way is largely known and the question becomes how. But for the ones who stand at ground that fathers never touch, the question isn't how, it's whether it's too much, whether the frontier swallows men who venture past the pale, whether the map gets written or whether it's the tale of a man who went too far alone and left no record there. Lewis and Clark didn't have the luxury of knowing. They just moved into the winter of the country they were going into, took the reckoning, each dawn adjusted walk. The map was not the territory talked, and they learned to read it, moving not from books. The cartographer's first instrument is the way the country looks. Now I've walked enough for this new ground to recognize the signs. The terrain has its own language and its own meridian lines. I've learned to read the weather of the territories I've claimed, and to name the unnamed places with the clarity of name. Experience the hard-won kind that only comes from going past the last familiar marker into something unknowing. I am drawing the map that someone in my bloodline will inherit. First generation frontier men, we don't just cross the ground, we consecrate it. Walk it first, walk it well. The cartographer's creed. You draw the road as you go. Every step into the unknown is the only thing you know. The map gets made behind you, and it's made from what you cross. The man who charts new ground accepts he cannot count the cost before he starts. The cartographer's creed. Draw the road as you walk it. The cartographer's creed. The map is behind you, the road is ahead. Keep moving. That's the whole creed. Winds howl through the iron trees where weaker branches snap. Tempests test the surface, but the core stays on the map. One man stands rooted while the chaos spins around. His calm becomes the center. No storm is ever found. Steel is forged in silence long before the hammer falls. The armor never shines, yet stops every hidden blade. Discipline becomes the steel no enemy can fade. The armor never shines, yet stops every hidden blade. Discipline becomes the steel no enemy can fade. consistent with its velvet-covered lies, offering easy victories that clever men disguise. Yet the steady pulse refuses every offered key, keeping the inner fortress locked for only him to see. Years temper hidden edges sharper than any sword. Respect accrues like rust that time cannot afford to remove from surfaces that never sought the light. Quiet strength endures the dark and owns the endless night. The armor never shines, yet stops every hidden blade. Discipline becomes the steel. No enemy can fade. The armor never shines, yet stops every hidden blade. Discipline becomes the steel. No enemy can fade. Footprints slowly disappear beneath the drifting sand. Names once carved in marble dissolve across the land. Yet something deeper lingers in the places eyes ignore. A current carved by patience that the Russian never saw. Echoes fade but canyons stay, where quiet rivers ran. The mark remains long after every voice has died away. Legacy is whispered by the ground where footsteps lay. The mark remains long after every voice has died away. Legacy is whispered by the ground where footsteps lay. Monuments to ego crack and crumble in the rain, while unseen work continues past the pleasure and the pain. Discipline becomes the architect of what will last, building bridges over voids that louder men walk past. Time reveals the quiet ones who never sought applause. Their presence felt in absence like a shadow without cause. No validation needed when the work has spoken clear. The path continues forward, cold, unbroken, and sincere. The mark remains long after every voice has died away. Legacy is whispered by the ground where footsteps lay. The mark remains long after every voice has died away. Knives are drawn in anger where the fools demand their due. Words fly sharp as arrows seeking targets they pursue. But one presence in the circle keeps us breathing, slow and deep, letting fury burn itself while the wise stay asleep. Control is proven only when the trigger stays untouched. The highest strength is measured by the rage that stays restrained. Restraint commands the battlefield where anger stands unchained. The highest strength is measured by the rage that stays restrained. Restraint commands the battlefield where anger stands unchained. Enemies grow restless, waiting for the breaking sign, searching for the weakness in a perfectly drawn line. Yet the calm decision turns their fire into smoke, leaving only ashes where their loudest threats once spoke. Respect settles heavy like the night that claims the day, earned through countless moments where emotion walked away. Discipline becomes the language only certain men can speak. Authority without a sound, steady, cold and deep. The highest strength is measured by the rage that stays restrained. Restraint commands the battlefield where anger stands unchained. The highest strength is measured by the rage that stays restrained. Restraint commands the battlefield where anger stands unchained. Nothing in the catalog of comfort ever cut this clean. No gradual accumulation of the pleasant and serene produced the edge that only comes from the impossible collision of the heat and the sudden cold, from the violent precision of a world that didn't ask before it changed the composition of everything a man believed about his own condition. The volcano and the ocean didn't negotiate the terms. What emerged between them had no patience for what comfort confirms. Not broken, reconfigured at the molecular level of the man. Obsidian, what extreme conditions leave behind when the heat has done its work and the cold has been the sign to finish what the fire started. seal the edge and said, the sharpest thing a man can be was made by what he couldn't yet forget. Obsidian, born from violence into clarity. Obsidian, I have been inside the pressure of the thing that doesn't bend, that compresses without mercy towards some unannounced end. Where the man I was before couldn't breathe inside the weight, and the man who came out different didn't recognize the state he'd arrived in. Something harder and more transparent too, the way that obsidian lets the light begin to move through its edges. Holds a darkness but transmits a certain cold brilliance, the light of things that cost more than that toll. Coal and diamond share the same original element. The only difference between them is the depth of the torment, and the time spent in the present, and the willingness to stay inside the transformation, past the urge to pull away. The diamond doesn't choose the pressure, but it answers with its nature. The obsidian didn't choose the fire, but it answered with its edge. Now I recognize the furnace when it starts its slow approach, the particular compression of a season past its scope. I'm moving to it differently, not without the weight of fear, but with the understanding of what exits on the other. Here's out of the impossible, the knowledge in the bone, that the edge I carry now was born from seasons spent alone. In the meeting of the things that tried to cancel what I was, pressure doesn't build character, it reveals what character was always made of. Go into it, come out sharper. Obsidian, what extreme conditions leave behind when the heat has done its work and the cold has been assigned to finish what the fire started. Seal the edge and said, the sharpest thing a man can be was made by what he couldn't yet forget. Obsidian, born from violence into clarity. Obsidian, fire didn't destroy you, the cold didn't break you. What you are now required both. There's a particular hour that belongs to no performance, where the architecture of the day has lost its ordinance, and the man who kept his posture through the civilized proceedings is alone now with the inventory of his unresolved readings of himself, the ones he tabled when the company arrived, the questions about whether what he's building has survived, the honest calculation where the effort meets the worth of the life constructed somewhere between ambition and the earth. No audience, no revision, just the hour and what it holds. The reckoning hour, when the noise is finally run out, when the man who kept composure finds he still has room for doubt. Not the doubt that breaks, the doubt that keeps a man exact. 3 in the morning is the only hour a man can't take back what he's lacked. The reckoning hour, when the honest dark arrives. The reckoning hour, the reckoning hour, all the substitutes go pale. Every comfort that obscured the unattended detail of the life unlived inside the life that's being lived. Every moment of the taking that was never truly given. I've sat inside that hour with the ledger of the years, not in self-destruction and not swimming in arrears of guilt, but in the sober and the solitary art of reading the accounts of what I've done with what I've got at heart. Oh, the Stoics called it the evening audit. Review the day before the rest. What did you fail at? What did you correct? What did you leave undone that deserved better than neglect? Not punishment, not theater, just the honest close of day. The reckoning hour is the price of living in a deliberate way. Now I welcome what the darkness holds when everything goes still. Not because the darkness flatters, but because it never will tell me anything but what the evidence of days produces, when accumulated honestly and stripped of its excuses. There's a mercy in the reckoning for men who face it true, who sit inside the audit and emerge with something new to work with in the morning. A corrected coordinate. The man who reckons honestly at midnight navigates better by dawn. Close the day clean, open the next one ready. The reckoning hour, when the noise is finally run out, when the man who kept composure finds he still has room for doubt. Keeps a man exact. Three in the morning is the only hour a man can't take back what he's lacked. The reckoning hour, when the honest dark arrives. The reckoning hour, the hour will come, whether you're ready or not. Better to meet it with the lights on.